Hello and welcome to Behind the Channel with me, John Nolan, our new podcast focused on the people behind the channel. As we all know, Arrow are pioneers in distributing top technology, but this podcast is about the people, not the products. To that end, I am delighted to welcome our first guest, channel legend, Lauren Marsden.
Thanks, John.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you
Nice
for joining
to meet
today. Yeah. So, first of all, what are you doing now? Where are you at?
Yeah, so I'm Lauren Marsden. I work for an organisation called Everfox, which is one of the leaders in high assurance cybersecurity. I cover the channel globally, everything outside US and Canada. So we class that as our rest of world channel. So covering lots of countries and lots of travel.
Lots of air miles. Fantastic. So Everfox, really exciting new technology that we're working with very closely at Arrow here. But today was all about you. Mm-hmm. Okay, you've got a fantastic history within the industry and someone that we're really excited to talk to today. So if you don't mind, we're going to take this right back to almost the start. So from an education perspective, where did you go to school, college, and then how did what was your first job?
Yeah, so interesting to be back up north. I live about 40 miles from here. I went to school in a local village and town. At high school, let's just say the wilder side came out of me and didn't probably have my head down as much as I should have done. And so upon leaving school, I wanted to be a police officer. And so I went off to college to do a public services course, and I hated it. Traveling to college each day for a couple of hours, it just wasn't for me, no structure, etc. So I ended up working in a holiday cottages telephone centre, nice. Booking people's holidays. I did that for quite some time, and then I met what is my current husband, and we decided to go off travelling the world. So we set off and we did a round the world trip for 12 months. Camping in the outback of Australia. And then when I came back, I thought, I'm going to have to probably grow up a little bit here. And I went to an agency and ended up getting a role actually working at Arrow, funnily enough, in their accounts payable department.
Wow.
So I used to come in each day and sit and kind of work through all the chasing people to pay their bills, etc. And yeah, it was where I started and it was great. For me, though, it was probably just a bit quiet. Everybody just in the team tapping their calculator. And so I sat in a room at the time, and there was the sales team at the back of the room who were loud, vibrant, looked to be the ones always having fun on incentive trips, etc. And so I thought, that's probably more for me. And so when a role came up, I applied for it and I transitioned across into inside sales. And yeah, that's kind of how I started. I didn't really get many great GCSE grades, didn't go to university, and just ended up kind of getting a job.
So like many people then almost fell into the industry,
Absolutely.
Via a role, you're not really understanding what kind of industry you're walking into. But once you were in accounts payable, you then saw the sales organisations and thought, that looks like a bit of me, yeah?
Yeah.
So what was that first role? Were you working with vendors or were you working with accounts partners?
So yeah, in the inside sales team, initially we sold a number of vendors, but I think one of the leading vendors at the time was HP. And it is quite a few years ago now, back in, I think, 2001. And so we were selling kind of hardware. So back in the day, often, you were successful in a sale if you were the ones that had the stock in the warehouse and could ship it on time. And so, it was very different than it is today. We again worked with a number of reseller partners like distribution do today, but it was just on those kind of trying to sell that run rate of business where you had the stock in the warehouse.
So reacting and getting stuff out the door.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long were you doing that for?
I think I did that for a couple of years, and I actually, in between times, went off and had my first child, but then I came back and I was team leader. And so the team had progressed and grown, etc., and I became team leader. And we were really successful because, you're bringing in young, kind of vibrant people to the team from local area. And but back in the day, it makes me sound like I'm ancient. Back in the day,
we're all ancient.
Yeah, we were in the office 9 till 5:30 every day, so it was very much here in Harrogate, the other office across the road now, but every single day working with the team and progressing from there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We'll come back to a couple of points. I want to pick up on a couple of things you mentioned, but I want to find out, when did you realise that this was the industry that you wanted to be in, that you wanted to stay in, and this was you? Because I think we see that a lot. People get into this industry and very rarely leave it. What was the turning point for you?
I think people underestimate how much influence other people have on you. And I think I always aspired to be probably successful, but so some very successful salespeople in the organisation, some successful leaders in the organisation. And I think that was where it kind of hit home for me of that's what I want to do. I want to be a successful salesperson initially. And so, I think it was just seeing, I suppose, leading people in the industry and thinking, that's kind of what I want to aspire to do.
Yeah, so you made some really interesting points there about leadership. I think that's a really key point, and I definitely want to come back to that in a minute. But you've also alluded to a couple of things, how distribution used to be and how I recall them many years ago. How do you think distribution's changed over the last 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, like I mentioned, we were selling a lot of HB hardware, so hardware back in the day, and it was key who had the kit in stock, who could ship on time, etc. I think things have changed massively because it's not just all about now who's got the the infrastructure in their warehouse. It's often a lot more value add from distribution, and I think I've seen that most recently in the job role that I do. I do look after EMEA, or rest of world, and it's really important for me to work with a distributor that can give me that scale and reach across multiple countries. Some small countries, we were working with Arrow last week on, with your Polish team, is, it's really good to have a distributor that can give you that kind of reach across all those different countries and regions.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think you've highlighted there that distribution needs to be different things to different vendors, right? Different partners, and we have to be agile enough to understand what our partners on both sides of the coin look like. So let's talk a little bit more about yourself, Lauren. You were an Arrow. I'm not going to give the exact timelines, but a certain amount of years ago.
Yeah.
And then what's your journey look like to get you to where you are today?
Arrow made an acquisition of an organisation called Ultimate, and they were a small distribution arm based in Stockport, Manchester. And I think one of the key things for me was just the opportunity that Arrow gave me. Many opportunities, but this opportunity was to move across from working in Harrogate each day and move across and work with the newly acquired organisation based in Stockport. And so I then used to, instead of travelling here, used to travel across to Stockport every single day. But the team that I kind of inherited in Stockport was a really young, vibrant team. They'd had some strong leadership before, but they had some really good best practices. So they taught me probably as much as I brought to them, really. The team were really young, energetic. They were a fantastic team. The relationships they had within the vendors was really key. Some really, really strong relationships at all levels. And so I think the vendor was very reliant on distribution and that distribution arm. And so it was a big learning curve, but going across to the Stockport office, the Manchester office, was probably the real, I suppose, stepping stone in my career to the next level. From there was a number of changes, and at the time we were working very closely with two vendors, which was Symantec and Veritas. And I then took a role within Veritas, looking after their Northern Europe distribution and what we called high growth partners. So not their kind of top 20 partners, they're smaller partners, and developing those high growth partners across all Northern Europe, so the Nordics and the UK, as well as still looking after distribution. Having been in Veritas then for, I think, about 18 months, I think I was pretty much looking back and thinking I really liked the security element, from working with semantics, etc. And so then there was a director role within a cybersecurity company called ForcePoint. And I moved across to ForcePoint again, where I looked after the business just from a Northern Europe standpoint with 6 channel account managers, but we worked with all the key channel partners in the UK and across the Nordics. And so, I kind of took that flip back to the security side. Then from there, I stayed in Forcepoint for until I here today. So Everfox was acquired, but they were part of Forcepoint. They were the federal business within Forcepoint, so they call that their G2CI business. And then I transitioned across to Everfox. But before that, again, talking about opportunity, I was given the opportunity to look after EMEA for Forcepoint. So, from looking after just the UK and the Nordics, I took an EMEA role, which included the Middle East as well. And so just learning so much about, the different cultures of trading, the different countries. It was, I was given that opportunity to learn. So it gave me, but also working in an organization that I knew and felt kind of trusted, etc. So it was, and that's where I ended
Sounds
up.
like quite a steep learning curve you've had across your career.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I'll be honest, when I started the role of looking after EMEA, I did actually buy a world map and put it on my wall in my office thinking, gosh, I should have concentrated more in geography at school.
Yeah, Sweden's bigger than you think, isn't it?
Yeah. So no, I've been very lucky because it's allowed me to travel to many countries and meet some fantastic people across the world. So yeah.
Awesome. I want to circle back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier about like certain leaders and inspirational people in your journey so far. Who are those key people? Who are the people that you've looked up to and thought, and you can name them or you can allude to them, whichever you feel most comfortable, but who are the people that you thought, actually, that's someone I want to be like, or someone I want to impress, or someone I want to work with or work for? Or
So I think, let's take it back to the Arrow leadership, back in, I keep saying back in the day, it sounds like it was,
1942.
Yeah, exactly. But at the time there was Steve Pearce and through a number of acquisitions, Sphinx, there was Nick Bannister, who's still with you today.
Still is.
Through that acquisition, I used to travel to the Nottingham office quite a bit, and even with Nick, he taught me so much, but without probably even realising that he'd taught me lots of, they worked very differently. They were very much a security distribution arm that Arrow acquired. But even along the way, there was characters, Johnny Ellis. I don't know if you know Johnny Ellis.
Johnny, yeah.
But even Anthony Dobson, I was just thinking to myself the other day, like, Anthony probably taught me PowerPoint. He was so fantastic at putting a PowerPoint presentation together that even to this day, I still think about, oh yeah.
He's still very good. Yeah, from what I understand, it's still one of his strengths.
And so different leaders in different places. There was a leader back in Veritas at the time, Genevieve Martin, a female leader. And it's always interesting, again, being a female in the industry, to see female leadership. And I always remember being at an event and Genevieve said, when it comes to question time, I want you to ask a question. I was thinking, oh my God, you've no chance. Anyway, I didn't dare. I don't know why, but nowadays I would. But back then, I think I was just probably thinking I wasn't, I don't know, good enough, or maybe
I think
a little imposter syndrome. Or
yeah, I mean, that's a massive point, actually, one that I wanted to discuss a little bit more. I think there's a bit of a challenge, should we say, maybe, of getting more women into the industry. It's something that we're still trying to drive now within Arrow, obviously an equal opportunities organisation, but I think everyone is these days. I think it's important, but I think particularly in this industry, it seems like a very male-dominated space. Have you ever found that as a challenge personally, or have you ever seen that as an opportunity to kind of push yourself? Or, like you said, you mentioned Genevieve there, a strong female leader. Have you tried to become that yourself now and pioneer that?
I think I always wanted to I think keep progressing, and not necessarily was hoping to become a leader, but definitely wanted to progress. But yes, from those people that, those leaders that we talked about, I think that did influence me to think, oh yeah, I think I could be a strong, leader. But I think, from a female standpoint, yes, it has been maybe previously quite male orientated, but I think that I've never really come across any challenges where I've felt that it's hindered my progression, or, I think that, when I talk about the people that influenced me through my journey and my career, many of them were strong male leaders. And, I don't necessarily feel that I've been impacted by being the only female in the room or the only female on the trip, etc.
That's good to hear. Like from your
Can't
perspective.
talk about football.
No, that's fair enough.
I'm not very good when the guys start to talk football, but the girls are coming up there, aren't they?
I get a bit too cross when we talk about football anyway, so it's a good subject to steer clear of. And I think, like you said, it's good. I mean, obviously, from your perspective, it's not had a particularly negative impact on your career, but how can we do more? How can we do better?
Yeah.
I think from my perspective, when I hire a role, for example, I might get 10 CVs and one of them might be a woman. How can we increase that engagement? I mean, and I don't need, I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
It's interesting because from many of the teams that I've always run in the channel, it's always been quite female.
Yeah.
So, all the cameras were girls, or, and maybe I had one male in my team, but the majority of them were female. And even when I talk about moving across to the office in Manchester, it was a good mix, but there was quite a lot of females there. I think from encouraging females into certain industries, or encouraging anybody into an industry, I talked about how I've been given opportunity, and I think regardless of whether you think that's a male dominated industry or female dominated, is that there's opportunity for everybody, and I don't feel that it's ever hindered me in any way of thinking that I was in a male industry. But I think for the younger generation is, I mentioned I wasn't very good at school. I think as long as you feel that you've got the support of the network around you and the influence of key leadership, I think that anybody can take that stride forward and take the chance of working in the IT industry.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, we need to keep getting the good young people in.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at school, IT industry, I'd never heard of it.
No, me neither.
Never heard of it. And, it was kind of like you went to be a teacher, or you went to work as a nurse. You only knew
the industries that you'd worked,
exactly.
You'd seen, doctors, teachers, pilots.
And so I definitely wasn't going to be a pilot, but, those, I'd never heard of it. And so it wasn't until I came just to work in accounts that was the first point where I'd ever heard of data storage and big racks of servers and flashing lights.
And also the money in it is pretty good,
yeah.
to be fair, which is something we need to educate, I think. Educate, as being more involved in, out of university, out of college, an onboarding program.
I mean, I was talking to one of the SEs in our organisation, and I said, where did you start and everything? And it won't mean a lot to everybody, but a small town down the road from here called Skipton, he said, I did a networking course at Skipton. I was like, oh, really? He said, yeah, I had some family up north. And so I think that, the colleges and everything now are recognising that this is an industry for the future. And it's good. I just don't think there's enough education still at maybe a school level.
No, I think for the first time I saw my son going to college, there's an IT security program they can do now. There's a variety of courses you can do, particularly around our industry. It's becoming top of mind, I think, as we start to see these things become, more than just behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They're becoming relevant to the, definitely the next generation.
Absolutely. And, I think still now when I have to explain to somebody that's never heard of the IT, well, they know what a computer is, but
my mum doesn't know what I do.
Cybersecurity, for instance, I still have to use certain analogies when it comes to it.
Distribution to supermarket is the one I have to use. So, over the course of your career, have there been any challenges that you faced that have really stuck with you? And if so, how have you overcome those? How have you,
I think challenges, probably from a personal aspect, was when I had children and we were still working full-time in an office at that point in time. Believe it or not, there was a fine line between the cost of childcare for 2 small children versus, at the time, the role I was in. And so that was probably one key challenge for me. But then I think, from a more kind of personal point is, believe it or not, I was absolutely petrified of standing up to talk in front of anybody. So as soon as we were going to any kind of sales kickoff where you thought that maybe you had to stand up and speak, I would just do everything I could to try and avoid that situation.
You're doing really well today, by the way.
Thanks.
Maybe it's because you're sitting down.
Yeah. And I always remember once we went to a HP event with Arrow, and it was the first time I had to stand up at and present, and I had some cards a little bit like yourself in my hand, and I was fine. I was absolutely fine. I've got this, no problem. And as I stood up, I started to shake, and these cards were flapping that much that it must have just, everybody in the room must have just been thinking, oh gosh, poor girl, I want to get up and give her a hug kind of thing, But yeah, then, now I've run events where I've been on the main stage, and, I still get nervous.
Yeah, that's good though. It means you care, right?
It still has a lot of thought about it.
You've come a long way.
Yeah, definitely.
They might have just thought you were trying to fan yourself.
Yes, probably it was very warm in there that day, yeah.
Fantastic. You seem very passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
And you seem very animated about your background and passionate about your kind of history within the industry. What is it that you are most, what is it that keeps that passion alive within this industry? What is it that excites you the most?
I would definitely 100% say the people.
Yeah.
And for me, I am very passionate about it. I love this industry. I love the people I've worked with across the years. Still very good friends, like one of my best friends I met when Arrow had me move across to Manchester. She was in the team at the time. And so I definitely think it's the people. I think, one of the really key things for me is giving people opportunity. The support, it's really important as you start to progress into your roles, and we are now those people that maybe some of those younger generation look up to, like I was looking up to those people, it's really important to support them and make them feel that they have, we have things like mentoring programs, but I think that mentoring is full time when you've got a younger team, the younger team teach us as managers things, just as much as we're teaching them new things. A lot of the people that I've helped to get into the industry, has probably been because somebody helped me, and I was very, very, feel that I was being very lucky. Mm-hmm. And so I feel that it's very important to really support those kind of younger generations coming up through the ranks. I mean, some of them, some of the teams now are fantastic young individuals, and so, but I'm a real keen supporter of helping the younger generation come up through the ranks in an organisation.
So on that note, you mentioned that you've had leaders inspirational to you over the past however many years. You're a leader now. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to anyone wanting to start their career or has just started their career in this industry within Arrow? I think a lot of people see the journeys a lot of people go on.
Yeah.
What have you learned that you'd go, I need to tell my younger self this, or I need to make sure my kids know this? What's important to you?
I think it's important to really push yourself forward. And, when you come out of school, maybe, for instance, I know my daughter had her first job interview last week, and, the night before I was like, we really need to prep. I think you've got to really be willing to put that investment into yourself and to your own career. Don't just think you can turn up and wing it, because you put the time and investment in, but also just asking for the support. Don't be afraid. Everybody's human. Don't be afraid to ask those people that seem scary for their advice. Everybody likes to help other people generally, and so I think, just making sure that you really push yourself forward, take those opportunities. Take yourself out of your comfort zone, like I mentioned, standing up, speaking. You've got to take yourself out of those comfort zones of just sitting at the back of the room, and push yourself forward to go and say hello and shake somebody's hand and introduce yourself. I love meeting new people, and so And people say, oh, but you're senior, and maybe they mean in age.
They know what to do when they're talking about me.
But I do think you've got to just take yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. There's everybody that surrounds you, no matter how senior they are, have all had the same thought process about something along their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that point. Ask for advice, I think, is one of the best ways to ingratiate yourself.
Yeah, and even, just say, would you be willing to read my CV? How could I improve it? I'm doing this tomorrow. Could you just help me? Or I've got this presentation. You wouldn't just mind looking through it, would you? Or, the amount of times that people have come and asked for my help, and I'm not saying that it's always right, but they can just pick up snippets. And even now, when people say things and they're presenting, I write things down and think, oh, that was a cool little snippet, or that was a, so you're learning all the time, and don't just think that by not asking for advice that you'll make it. I think that there's a lot of people willing to.
Which shows strength. I think people think it the other way around, but actually it shows strength to ask for help.
Absolutely.
In this industry.
And I love it when people ask and go, oh, right, come on, sit down.
Yeah.
Show me your slide deck.
Let's grab a coffee. And, we're sort of coming to the end now, and I think it's only fair. Obviously, you're running the rest of the world for Everfox, which is a fairly new name in our portfolio in the industry, but it's not a new product, right? So it's only fair to give you a little bit of time to be able to talk about where Everfox is now, what you're doing, but also I want to get an idea about how the requirements of distribution change from a vendor like ForcePoint, big name vendor, to a vendor like Everfox, where you're maybe looking for something different. Yeah.
So Everfox is kind of defence grade security. So we work a lot in the critical infrastructure, cybersecurity. So they've been around for many, many years through different, and there's been many acquisitions along the way. And then Everfox has been formed as this kind of standalone vendor. For me, the requirements of distribution and the channel are a little bit different, because it's not the everyday customer that we're working with. We are working with, again, critical infrastructure, but oil and gas, power, government, defence. And so is, from the channel point of view, it's probably some niche partners that we're working with that have the relationships into those organisations. For me, in each country, it's not finding hundreds of partners. We are a smaller organisation, but some fantastic products. And so it's finding the partners that have the contacts into the government and the defence and are working in those organisations. Some of them are system integrators, some of them are kind of niche, smaller partners. There's only, as I mentioned it before, I think there's only myself and one other person in the channel team at the moment from what we call rest of world, which is outside US and Canada. So we've got a lot of coverage needed, and so it's just making sure that we utilise distribution to benefit us with, that they understand that what we do and can position us in the market, because we are a little bit different than some of the other vendors in the market. Position kind of how we're different, but also support us in those countries with their understanding of the market, so their understanding of who those key partners are that can get us into those key customers. So yeah, it's kind of a flip from where I've been previously, where we're wanting to sign more partners, we need more partners to sell our product. It's definitely around your knowledge in those markets. I really come to distribution and to Arrow for your knowledge to support me into those markets.
I think that's really a good point. I think we need to be a different distributor to different vendors and to different partners. And I think that's really important. That maybe goes unrecognised, but it's great that you've outlined that. That's all the questions I've got. Thank you so much for being so open and honest. It's been great to have you in. It's been really fun to talk to you. Hopefully we'll get you back soon. Maybe we'll get some of those legends that you talked about, you alluded to earlier, as those leaders.
In the room.
Make them blush when we say how good you thought they were. But thanks again, Lauren.
Thanks, John.
And thanks for watching our first episode of Behind the Channel. Stay tuned for more episodes coming very soon.